Patrick, and we are ready to get started on another video lesson. So today we're going to be talking more about rounding, just like yesterday. So make sure you dig up all that knowledge we got yesterday on rounding. Make sure it's right there in the front of your brain. But before we really get started, we're just going to make sure we've got our reminders down. Make sure you can hear my voice and that everyone else in your group can hear my voice. So look around. Do you see anyone trying to figure out headphones or something like that? You can pause the video and help them out. Okay. Also, you want to make sure you have your note page and a pencil ready. Now, this is different from yesterday. We're not using a whiteboard and marker today because there's just too many practice problems and things like that we need on our note page. So be sure you're following along with the notes to make sure you get the whole thing filled out. I cannot wait to see it when you're all done. Also, remember how to pause the video if Miss Patrick ever goes too fast or you need to hear something again or you were confused about something. You can pause it, you can go back, rewind it, watch whatever you need to again or catch up on your notes and then press play to get going. And make sure you are ready to learn. All right, so we're looking at this learning target today. I can round a number to the nearest 10. Ooh, and I seem to remember, I think that learning target was on your note page. So you might want to pause the video and make sure you get that on that note page. I can round a number to the nearest 10. Great. So before we really get into that, let's remind ourselves from yesterday, what is rounding? Well, we're rounding to the nearest 10 when we decide which group of tens a number is closer to. Remember, when we talk about groups of 10, we don't mean the number 10, we mean groups or sets of tens, multiples of 10, right? Our 10, 20, 30, so on, okay? And we're asking ourselves, when we look at a number and we're trying to figure out how we round that and what that number is rounded, you're asking yourself, what is this number's closest 10? And if you remember it that way, whenever you see that word rounding to the nearest 10, that's going to help you kind of not overcomplicate things in your brain like how we talked about yesterday. All right, for example, 38 is closer to 40 than it is to 30. And that's something that all of you guys understand and can tell me, right? And we can look at that on a number line. Now, this number line shows 30 and it shows 40, our two multiples of 10 that we're looking at. Our previous 10, 30, and our next 10, 40. It also shows that number that's smack dab in the middle. Yesterday we talked about how we love to put that number on the number line, that landmark number that's smack dab in the middle, because it helps us find our other numbers on the number line. Once we get that 35 in there, it's easy to find about where 38 would go, right? Once we see where 38 goes, we can really see that it is definitely closer to 40 than it is to 30. We can use our math knowledge to say, well, it's only 2 away from 40, but it's 8 away from 30. Definitely closer to 40. So you would say 38 rounds to 40. Okay, you could also say 38 rounded to the nearest 10 is 40. Or you could say 38's closest 10 is 40. All right. Now, one question that you guys like to ask is, why do we need to know rounding? How is this going to help me in school and in life? Well, it's going to help you because when you get rounding down and you can do it easily and quickly in your brain, you can estimate or make good guesses on adding up big numbers or subtracting big numbers, and you can find a way to ask yourself, does my answer make sense, by rounding up those add-ins or rounding up the pieces of your subtraction equation and trying to kind of make an estimate of about where your number should land for your sum or difference, okay? We're going to practice that more later this year, but first we're going to focus on just learning what rounding is and how we do it, okay? We love to use models in 3rd grade, right? We love to use models to help us see the math that we're doing, okay? Yesterday, one of the models we used for rounding is the number line, like we just looked at. That number line helps you see literally how far away a number is from the other 10s, the previous 10, the next 10. Like on this number line, you can see that 27 is way closer to 30 than it is to 20, right? And you can use the number line even to count how far away it is. So number line is a great model to prove or to explain or show where a number rounds or what a number's closest 10 is. Another model that you can use if the number line model is just a little confusing for you is base 10 blocks. If you make a number like 27 with base 10 blocks, you're going to ask yourself, is this 27 closer to 20 or to 30? Well, if you look at those base 10 blocks, you could tell you really don't need that many more to make your next 10. So that's how you're going to know that 27 is closer to 30 than it is to 20. Okay? Another model that Miss Patrick really likes for rounding, something I like to think about, is money. Money is something we all understand and we all love to think about, right? Miss Patrick loves to think about money, especially if it's thinking about getting money instead of having to give money away. So if you're thinking about going to the store and finding something that costs $27, you might want to ask yourself, is $27 going to be closer to $20 or $30? About how much am I going to be spending? Well, if you're spending $27, you're definitely spending closer to $30 than $20. And money, always helps us kind of figure out what those numbers are really meaning, what they really represent. So you can always draw money or think about money to help you with rounding. And then last but not least, we have the 100 number chart. The 100 number chart is great for those of you that like the number line and the number line makes sense to you, but have a hard time drawing it and have a hard time saying, okay, wait, what is my first landmark number, my previous 10, what's going to be my last landmark number, my next 10? The 100 chart already has that for you. So you could look at your 100 chart, and if we look here at 27, we can see that previous 10 is 20, and it's really far from that 27. But the next 10, 30, is super close. So that's how you can quickly use a 100 chart to model, okay, how far is my next 10 or my previous 10? 27 is going to round to 30. Last but not least, I want to talk about rounding with equations and words. Some of you, when it comes to modeling, you get too wrapped up in the number lines like we talked about yesterday and figuring out how to draw it. But if you just think about what 10 is this number closer to, you know it. So let's look at how to use the words you're thinking in your brain to explain rounding and how to show it, prove that you understand it, okay? So we can use equations like 27 plus 3 equals 30 and 27 minus 7 equals 20 to prove which 10 27 is closer to, right? And if you do that, that shows me that you understand where 27 is going to round to and why. But it also helps to use words. If you say something like, I know that 27 is 3 away from 30, but 7 away from 20. Wow, Miss Patrick really sees that you understand that, right? And you can say, so I can tell that 27 is closer to 30, and 27 rounded to the nearest 10 is 30. Now, we just did 5 examples for 27, so hopefully if anyone ever asks you where 27 rounds, boom, you know that one, right? Okay. So, we've talked about our models, we really talked about what rounding is yesterday, and today we're going to work more on practicing, okay? You're going to use one of those models or explanations that we talked about. That includes equations and words if you want to use that, okay? You're going to use those models to show how you rounded each of these problems to the nearest 10. Okay, so here they are. You're going to want to pause the video and work each of these out on your note-taking page. Okay, so here are your problems. Go ahead, pause. When you're done, click play, and I will talk about these answers with you. Okay, so let's look at the first one. What is 21 rounded to the nearest 10? I want you to put your finger on the model that you drew or the explanation that you wrote because that's really, really important, okay? If you did your model or your explanation, we can go over the answer. 21 rounded to the nearest 10 is 20. Okay, if you haven't done the next one, pause, but I'm going to keep rolling. 48 rounded to the nearest 10 is 50. 33 rounded to the nearest 10 is 30. And 62 rounded to the nearest 10 is, 60. You got it. Great job. Hopefully you found that simple and easy. If you got any kind of confusion or questions about that, remember to write those down, jot them on your note page, and you can bring them with you to small group, and we'll talk about it, okay? Now, I have just a few more practices for you. This time, we're going to use the model number line. It's the same exact thing we practiced. Your number lines are already drawn for you on your note-taking page, so it should be even easier than yesterday, okay? But again, if you find yourself having trouble or getting confused, let me know. So, look at these 3 problems. Go ahead and solve them. You can pause the video and then press play to check your answers when you're all done with all 3 of them. All right, you guys, if you're done with these, we're going to go ahead and go over them. 34 rounded to the nearest 10 is blank. Well, let's put 34 on this number line. We know it's less than 35, so it's going to go on this left side of the number line. And once you put it there, you can see it is closer to 30. So your answer, 34 rounded to the nearest 10, is 30. Next, 72. 72 is also less than 75. So it is going to do what we call round down to the previous 10, okay? So 72 is closer to 70, so you would say 72 rounded to the nearest 10 is 70. Last, we have 88. 88 is more than 80. It's also more than 85 and less than 90. So it's going to go on this right side of the number line. You can see it's closer to 90 than it is to 80. So 88 is going to round to 90. I'm sure you did so great on those, and I cannot wait to see your note sheet. Make sure that if you got one wrong, you can fix it on there. Write down any kind of questions or confusion you have, and I can't wait to see you in small group. Great job today.